What up, gangs fam? I just kind of wanted to talk a little bit more of a casual video. Kind of following up my last video about, Funkos and people making fun of them and stuff. But, I just saw some videos about, because there was like a recent Nintendo Direct and there was a bunch of, hubbubaloo about the pricing. And then I saw another video about how adults have ruined, Lego collecting. And so, I think we're at this point, it's 2025, with collecting, with nerd culture, counterculture stuff that used to be, on the fringes of culture, how much things have changed in the last 10, 20, 15 years, however you want to put it down. So things that used to be kind of like on the fringes, like games, were considered nerdy. Even if like console gaming was considered nerdy, when I was a kid, when I was even in high school, I graduated 2009. And so back then it was just not considered very cool to be into games. You know what I mean? There were mainstream games like Call of Duty and Halo and stuff. But for the most part, the vast majority of people, they were considered kind of niche, kind of outside the normal. Same thing with anime. Back in the day, growing up, it was hard to get anime. The stuff we got was very curated, like Toonami and Adult Swim, and even the stuff that did make it to us was heavily censored, altered. It was just not the same. You watch Dragon Ball Z on Japanese television, there's blood, there's cursing, people are losing limbs, dying, so a lot of the American stuff was censored. So now we're in a point where anime is mainstream, gaming is mainstream, all these nerdy things are mainstream. And 10, 20 years ago, people used to make fun of, like, you go watch the 40-year-old virgin. And the whole premise is that he's this man-child, he's never progressed. And the way they show that is that he's got this crazy gaming room, he's got all these old antique toys. And then the process of the movie is him essentially becoming an adult man and giving up all these things that people viewed as childish that apparently kept him in this virgin mindset, right? So I just think we've reached a point in the cultural zeitgeist where things that used to be kind of on the edges of society are now very front and center. And so, it's not a bad thing, but I do think, you see these videos of like, Legos are becoming more expensive, gaming is becoming more expensive. And, part of that is the world we live in and the way things are going right now. Not so great, but, I just think there's a lot of reasons why we've arrived here. I don't know really what my point of this kind of ramble is, but just kind of talking about it is just like, people are pointing fingers at adults and they're saying that this is becoming a very, commercialized thing. But I think it's a lot of things that have led to this moment of just, people are a lot more open to nerd culture, collecting toys and playing video games. It's not weird anymore. And, it's not for everybody, but you're not going to, be openly bullied. The image in most people's mind of bullying, even though it hasn't been the same thing forever, is like that 80s, 90s nerd getting shoved in a locker. Doesn't really happen anymore. Anyone can be bullied for any reason now because, we're more of like an earnestness epidemic, I would say, where people who are often made fun of for just being themselves, right? I think right now there's a big push against identity politic type things where people, want to put themselves under very specific labels, and then because they ascribe to certain labels, they have to fight against other labels. And I don't know, I just feel like the main problem really is capitalism. You know what I mean? They realize it's profitable to sell Legos and Nintendo stuff to adults. I don't think any kid in their right mind is going to drop $100 on a plastic shell for their place or whatever, for their Switch, to make it so they can play Virtual Boy games. A failed console from the 90s that, I was around during that era as a kid, and I didn't hear about the Virtual Boy. It was a total flop. You know what I mean? It's the kind of thing that you found out about like 10 years later watching G4 documentaries about like Gunpei Yokoi and like all this stuff. And so I do think, I don't know. It's just a very interesting time. Lots of interesting things going on right now. But I do think if you're in the nerd spaces, you're in these collector spaces, you're in these, you starting to see looking at Marvel Legends, I was talking about that in the Funko video. They're going up in price. I talked about them being like $25. They're $28 now for just one figure. The amiibos and the Nintendo thing, they're $40 each. Amiibos used to be $12 like 10 years ago, and now they're $40. So, I mean, again, there's a lot of economic reasons for that, but also I do think it's just greed. It's just capitalism. We're finally hitting the point where, you used to be able to collect all this stuff or, play games, and it wasn't that crazy. Gaming was always an expensive hobby, but you could choose how expensive you wanted it to be, kind of, right? You could buy a console secondhand, you could buy the games used, you know what I mean? And, if you wanted to go crazy, you could buy a PC and go pimp it out. But for the most part, gaming used to be more affordable. You know what I mean? Consoles were about $200, which was a lot back then. But that was the big investment, was the console. The games themselves were never that crazy. And you could always find ways of borrowing games from people. Blockbuster was a big thing. Gamefly, which was like, still around probably, but Netflix of games, because they would mail you the freaking games. So it's like, now everything's very digital focused. Like that whole thing with the Nintendo accessory that makes it a Virtual Boy. It's $100. You don't own the games. So, if Nintendo Switch Online goes offline in 10, 20 years or whatever, you won't be able to play those Virtual Boy games anymore without hacking your system or whatever. And so you don't know those games because they're a subscription service. And I think that's kind of where we're at with like why things are getting more expensive. You know what I mean? There's just this push away from physical media into just, you don't own anything, right? You just own the idea of it. So I don't know. Kind of a rambly video, but I just kind of had a lot of thoughts. I've seen a lot of people being very negative about, and ultimately I agree. If you're not feeling like, oh, this Marvel Legends is not worth $30, this amiibo is not worth $40, good, do not buy it, because there's always going to be people who buy stuff no matter the price. But 2 amiibos for $80 is more than the collection of games. And then everybody's pointing out the Mario 3D All-Stars pricing versus the Mario Galaxy Collection pricing. I agree. Nintendo has been doing this for a long time, and I think they've been getting a free pass. A lot of these companies get a free pass because they give people what they want. They give them nostalgia. They give them good games. They give them nice feelings. It's fun to collect stuff. It's fun to be into the hobby. But they've figured it out, and they're like, well, we're just going to take them to the cleaners now. And, I don't know. My idea of a good time is going to Goodwill and pawing through the old stacks of media and looking for those gems that have slipped through the cracks. I don't know. I just don't have the same goals anymore. I like to collect old stuff, retro games. I can buy a stack. I can walk into my local retro game store and buy a stack of Xbox original games, PlayStation games, Xbox 360 games, PlayStation 2, whatever it is, whatever you're into. You can go in there and there's $5, $10, $15 games. You can still get these great games. Some of them are a little janky because back then games were just jank. You know what I mean? They weren't getting updated. There was no DLC. Games just came out, and if they were broken like that, they were broken forever, basically. So, I don't know. It's times have changed. Things have changed. We're in a crisis of like ownership and money. Capitalism just, it comes for everything, no matter what. Even if you think your little subgenre niche thing, they're not coming for it, they will. They will find a way in. They will find a way to take your money and charge you to hell and back for loving the things. You know what I mean? I'm a big Nintendo fan. I grew up in the 90s. Mario 3 was like the first game I ever beaten. I was 5 years old and I was playing Mario. I remember the year I got an N64, I also got a Super Nintendo game. So they bought me an N64, and I think the game they got me was for the Super Nintendo still. Like, and that's classic parents stuff. Like, they didn't know they couldn't play the old game on the new console, and that game was new. You know what I mean? I was Donkey Kong Country 3, and I was beating these extremely hard games, unforgiving games, because you bought that game and you played it for months, for almost a year. You would just play the same games over and over again as a kid. I don't know. I have this huge backlog. It's so sad. My Xbox is breaking. I bought my Xbox Series X at launch. The disk drive is gone out. So it's like I want to be into physical media, But now, and then it's because it's out of warranty. They want to charge me $300 to repair it. No. Either I'm gonna buy my own disc drive and rip open that Xbox and put my own in, or I'm waiting for it to die and I'm just moving to PC. I'm done with it. I don't even play that many games anymore. My Xbox is a YouTube and Crunchyroll and Balatro machine. I fired up the new Skate game. Trash. Like, it's fine. It's fun enough. But it's weird because they ask you when you boot up the Skate reboot game. That's like in early access right now. And they're like, hey, did you play Skate 3? And I'm like, yeah. And then it immediately made me think, I'm like, they know that all the fans of this game are coming from a 10, 15-year-old version of the game that people love and have been able to play this whole time. And this new game is nothing like that, unfortunately. That in 10 years, if Skate, the platform, the reboot, Skate 4, they don't want to call it that, but it's Skate 4. If it fails, that game will be gone, and there will be no servers for it. There will be no support. It won't be an offline game like Skate 3 is, a game from 15 years ago that people love. And so that's where my frustration is that these things aren't being made to last anymore. They're not being made to be owned and played forever. They looked at Nintendo, saw things like the Super Nintendo Classic, and they're like, oh man, this is too good because people will buy this and they can play it forever. They don't want that. They want to sell you a subscription that later on they can take it back, and then they can sell you a new subscription on the Switch 3 or whatever it is they're going to make next. And that's frustrating. I'm just so tired of everything being made to fall apart. Everything is, I don't know. There's a reason why my house is full of retro consoles, because I could take the console, I shove the cartridge in the game, I play the game, and when I'm done I turn it off, and I still own it, and I can come back whenever I want. And it doesn't matter if the internet doesn't work or the service has gone down. There's no subscription to have. It's just a game and me, and that's it. I'm so tired of just That's what I mean, is like companies, they don't want you to own anything. My Xbox, I'm sorry, this video has gone off the rails, but I'm just rant mode now. My Xbox that is breaking in front of me, they removed the video and TV or movie sales point. There used to be a movies and TV app. Just like any store on any app, on iTunes or whatever, you could download, you can buy them to keep forever, quote. That's a lie. You're buying a license. And so they took away that app. You can still access all of the things you bought. So I have all this stuff that I bought back when this was called the Zune Marketplace or the Xbox 360 Marketplace. Some of this stuff I bought 20 years ago on my Xbox. You know what I mean? When buying things digitally was new and novel, and I was like, oh, I can just download the new season of Venture Brothers or Aqua Teen on here. And now 20 years later, they're like, no, I mean, you can still access this stuff, but for how long? How long before they decide, we're not supporting that legacy content anymore? And again, I don't own it. I own the license to watch it. There's no way to forever download it and keep my own files of it. So sick of it. I don't know. Fool me once, Next step is Xbox goes under and I lose my 500 game library. When I was game sharing with my friend, we had 1,000 games almost. 500 games on Xbox digitally owned. Some of them were, freebies from Game with Gold. Some of them were freebies from whatever. But I paid for probably like 80% of those games. And then one day, Xbox as a brand will go away. It's seeming more and more likely every moment. And so all of my games, all my purchases will go poof because they were licenses. I did not own the game. I owned a digital ghost in the machine, a receipt that said I owned a thing. But it's really a pass to get in. And I'm sick of it, bro. I'm so sick of it. I'm tired. I'm so tired, man. Can't we just own things again? Like I prefer like audiobooks and stuff, but I've just gotten into buying physical books because it's so nice to just own a thing and it just sits there and I can come back to it when I'm ready. And I don't have to worry about my credits lapsing or my Audible subscription lapsing or Amazon blah, 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 blah. Can you tell? I'm done with it. And there's so many other bigger things going on in the world that it's kind of like that when I start to hit this friction point with media where I can't access the things I want, I just get so mad. I'm like, okay, so you just want me to go back to piracy because there's so many other bigger problems in my life that I can't be spending time thinking about this. I can't be spending time thinking about the trappings of Nintendo refusing to sell me Mario games without a crazy price point and limited windows of availability. And yeah, I'm bitter, man. I'm annoyed. Nintendo's just Disney, and we all need to stop playing pretend because we like the things that they made 20 years ago. Yes, they make some good stuff still. Does it justify $80 for Mario Kart? Shit. You know what I mean? I'm so tired, bro. Can we go back to things being okay for a little bit? I just mean in general, but also with hobbyist stuff. Ever since the pandemic, hobbyist stuff has started to become less fun, and it's become just another part of the machine. And, hobby stuff was supposed to be fun and chill. I was supposed to, be into toys because nobody gave a shit that I was like, oh, I like these Ninja Turtle toys or action figures from my childhood. I don't know. Sorry. I can stop now. I've just been rambling. Basically, capitalism will come for your hobby, no matter what it is. You think it's safe, they will find it. They will find your niche. They will exploit it. You will get taken to the cleaners until the very last moment. You know what I mean? When people get sick of it, then things will change. Once everyone moves to pirating everything, then they'll start to go back. Because that's what happened in the early 2000s with Napster, because CDs were $40. You know what I mean? So there's a reason why we got here. The internet was a better solution for a time, and then capitalism came for it, and now it sucks. And everything's been made worse. Google was made worse. All the things you love were made worse. YouTube's in the process of being made worse, and we have to just watch it happen in real time and suffer. Okay. So anyway, rant over. Sorry, capitalism sucks. You already knew this. Anyway, goodbye.